Thank you so much, Lisa, for those kind words. And yeah, NRCS, we greatly appreciate our collaboration with you, the team of Renewing the Countryside. As you had mentioned, we got snow here in Madison area, and my internet is a little choppy here. So if I cut out, apologies. But do want to thank everybody so much for making time for the webinar here today. Looking forward to the presentations from the farmers, as well as we got great information to offer to let everybody know about Natural Resources Conservation Service program opportunities. Hope that you consider taking a look at those and hopefully applying for our programs for our cost share. And also too, hope everybody's super excited for spring. It's right around the corner, and talking about high tunnels and the growing season should be really a delight here today. So again, Lisa, thank you so much for coordinating the event here today. Looking forward to the dialogue, the conversation, and again, appreciate everybody making time. And NRCS, we really work so hard in Wisconsin, all of our staff, to be available to answer questions from producers at all times to make Wisconsin the vibrant agricultural commodity or agricultural environment that it is, but also to protecting our natural resources at the same time. They go hand in hand. So appreciate it again, Lisa, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. So before we kick off, we just want to get a sense of who is in the Zoom room. So a question here, where are you on your high tunnel journey? And we've got a good diversity of people here, I do believe. Are you totally new to them and curious? If that's the case, a special welcome. This is designed exactly for you. You know a little bit, but you're in the research phase. You're in the process of building. Maybe you have your EQIP application done and approved, and you have a high tunnel and you're using it. Terrific. We need you as a resource to welcome. Okay, so this is, I'll get a couple more answers here and we can see where we are at. Terrific. Okay, so we have a good beginning crowd here. We have over 30% that are totally new to hoop houses, high tunnels. By the way, that's the same thing. And a lot of folks are in the process, so excellent. And one more question for us on the NRCS side of how familiar are you with NRCS and EQIP? Totally new. This is acronym soup to me. We have all been there, so a special welcome. If that is you, you're in the right place. And you have connected with NRCS, maybe met with your local staff on a land walk, maybe started something, or have you received EQIP or other NRCS support before? Give that a second. And on that acronym soup note, please just stick in the chat if any of us go into acronym soup, or just say something or a term that you're not familiar with. It's not even acronym soup at the USDA, Eric. It's like acronym buffet. There are so many acronyms and they change and they don't always make sense. So terrific. Okay. We wonderfully have a new group here too. A lot of folks new to all of this. That's exactly who we want in the Zoom door. Thanks for coming. You've connected with NRCS but are interested in doing more. Fantastic. And some folks who have received NRCS support, and great. We hope things can expand for you. And again, please, particularly you folks in the chat, as questions come up, share those. So, all righty, onward with our show. I would like to turn things over to my colleague and dear friend and fellow farmer, Sarah George, with Renewing the Countryside. For some folks might have seen, she like basically saved this webinar, might I just say, on the tech side, because she has that zippy Starlink in Lake Pepin. But also she's just an amazing collaborator. So Sarah is a farmer up in Lake Pepin. She is a vegetable grower. She has a hoop house herself, has gone through exactly the process that we're talking about today. So you will see her in the chat for sure, answering questions. But the woman has many hats, as you will soon see. So she's going to share a couple other opportunities and programs Renewing the Countryside is involved with. And again, everything we're talking about will get to you in the follow-up email, website addresses, all that as well. And on that note, take it away, Sarah.
Hey, Lisa, thanks for the intro. Hello, everybody. I'm going to start us off today just by sharing some of the resources that we at Renewing the Countryside, I work with or for Renewing the Countryside, which is a nonprofit organization that supports food systems and sustainable rural development here in the Upper Midwest. And some of the projects that we're working on up here is, I'm going to start off by sharing. Oh goodness, of course it's not going to be there. All right. Wisconsin Women in Conservation. So this Wisconsin Women in Conservation is a fantastic organization that's made up of multiple organizations. So we have Michael Fields, Moses, the Renewing the Countryside, Wisconsin Farmers Union, all working together with the NRCS. It's women, landowners. They could be farmers, non-operating landowners, whatever that is, that are coming together to talk about and are very passionate about conservation happening in our communities. We're building a network amongst each other to make this happen. We're targeting women for this. The women we're targeting is because women are the reason we're focusing on women is that women are more forthcoming with their visions and their challenges in a women-only setting. And so we're putting our focus on those women so we can ask those questions and go through the clarifications of acronyms and understanding and building support for each other in the area. That being said, this is a 3-year project. We began in the fall of 2020. Last year, we were able to do many workshops. Ideally, these are going to be in person, but during last year, we did have to do this during, COVID when it was taking place. So we did a lot of virtual stuff that took place. This year, we're going to be having our spring workshops coming soon. I'll show you the dates for that. And maybe Lisa can drop in the chat where you can register for our events. But I do want to share that last year, one of the things that we did that we didn't realize was going to be super successful was the summer camp series. And so I really want to encourage you. This is a 1-hour lunch that you can join us with and hear about different high topic areas, high priority areas in your community. Okay, so this is where we are located. We do have regional coordinators out there. So the Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, West Central, and then this year we added the Southwest and an additional location there in the Northeast. But that doesn't limit you. This just means it's easier for us to build networks and travel. But if you're willing to travel, join us. How we're doing it, we're doing this through learning circles, field days, webinars. I'm just connecting and engaging and networking in our communities and building a phenomenal cohort, if you will, of women that can work together on different things. Here's some of those events that we have coming up as soon as April 6th, actually. And Lisa, I'm assuming just dropped that in the chat so you can find us. Sign up for our newsletter. That's at info@wewic.org. Or sign up for some of our events. The summer camp series, those are all virtual. So you guys can join those, watch for the events, sign up for our newsletters so that those get reminded out to you. We're going to be hitting on topics that you all stressed as important in your community. So I just wanted to share that particular event. At the same time, I'm also going to be sharing with you another project that I'm working on. And this one is an FSA Connectors project. So in FSA, which is Farm Service Agency, what we're trying to do is increase participation with our FSA connectors within FSA. So within the Farm Service Agency, to socially disadvantaged producers. You're going to hear a little bit later what socially disadvantaged producers are. Lisa's going to be covering that. But we're working both in Minnesota and Wisconsin to increase activities within the FSA or the Farm Service Agency so that you can understand what that is. Oftentimes when we're working with government programs, there's things, we have a lot of acronyms. And so it's a little intimidating to go into an FSA office and talk to them because they're going to be saying different acronyms and talking to you about like FSFL, which is the Farm Service. Oh gosh, I used one that I got to look up. Farm Service Loan, FSFL, I'm going to get on it. I'll get back to that one. I'll put it in the chat when I find it. But our connectors are able to help you with in many different ways. We can help you get meetings with the FSA, help you get a farm number. Today, we're talking about high tunnels. And when you go through and get the high tunnel, you're going to have to actually have a farm number in order to be eligible for a farm tunnel or a high tunnel, excuse me. So you're going to get that farm number and then you can go to your NRCS office and actually apply for that EQIP grant. So we can help with that. We have connectors located throughout the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin here, and some of our connectors are on the call today. Here's where, yes, we're on a lot of the border on Minnesota, but we're able to cover in many different areas. Here's the actual counties that our connectors are located in. And I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you to see if we can work with you in the area. I'd love to be able to connect you. If you don't have us in your area, definitely reach out to me. I'll drop my email in the chat so that you have the ability to reach out to me and I can get you connected. We want to let you know regional events are coming soon for those FSA events. And there is my email, sarah@rtcinfo.org. So I just wanted to start with that. Meanwhile, I'm going to put my info in the chat. And Lisa, would you like your?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to give you just a quick, not even a nickel, like a 2-cent tour of the NRCS. But what Sarah was talking about connectors, that's what we really want to stress is this project we have with Renewing the Countryside. We have a team, as you'll soon meet, and various resources to help you connect with agencies. That's our goal. So it's a good, so there's a lot of resources is what I'm saying, bottom line. You don't need to learn it all. We're here to help, and this is meant to be an introduction today. So excellent. On that note, yeah, thank you, Sarah. So the NRCS is an agency of the USDA, Natural Conservation, Great.
There you go.
Okay. Is it the first slide?
This is the first.
There. Perfect. Okay. So this whole thing is a project today with Renewing the Countryside and also our friends with Sustainable Farming Association in Minnesota to help connect what is classified by the USDA as historically underserved or socially disadvantaged farmers with NRCS programs. This is called Conservation Connections. We have conservation connectors to help you, and it's all about helping and amplifying those resources. So the you can just run through this, Kara. So the NRCS is the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Let's start with that acronym. It's the main federal agency that works with private landowners to really help us meet our conservation goal. The NRCS is all about conservation, about soil health, about all of those things we care about, but conveniently, all those things we care about within conservation also help our farm businesses, also help our soil, also help us grow more, grow better. So it's a real great partnership for farmers working with NRCS. They see our environment holistically and that all of these things are connected. And some of those things will come up when you talk at, when we hear from Megan and when we ask questions, in that there are very seamless ways that we can partner with farmers, what your goals are for growing with conservation. So yeah, a little bit more on NRCS here, keep going, Sarah, we'll roll. Excellent. So this is our Conservation Connector project, which again is connecting with historically underserved farmers. I'll talk about those in a second to get you closer to these resources. Next. And here's where there's a little bit more information, and I apologize, I'm not able to see my own slide. There we go. Sarah, can you cover this one? I apologize. I see it now. Okay, beginning farmers. These are the different categories. No, Sarah, I'm sorry. Can you take this?
I can, absolutely. So historically underserved farmers, as you hear us mentioning historically underserved farmers in both the FSA and the NRCS project, oftentimes what we're referring to, this is the NRCS definition. It's defined in many different ways, but beginning farmers and ranchers. A beginning farmer is 10 years or less. Sometimes it's going to be farmers that have a median household income, so limited resource farmers. But also you're going to hear about socially disadvantaged farmers. So that's going to be American Indians, Asians, Blacks, African Americans, Native Hawaiians, or Hispanics. In that group, often, they refer to it as the BIPOC farmers. And then there's also veteran farmers. So historically underserved farmers, there's a reason that we're working with some of those farmers to get the programs available to them out there. And having that definition of what we're working on is very helpful so that you know who we're leading there. There, and I'm going to add a spotlight for you too, Lisa. So that covers that.
Excellent. So we're talking today about EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And this is a robust program, but still a very competitive program that NRCS uses for a variety of conservation practices. The EQIP umbrella is very big as far as things that qualify under it. We're going to be digging into more specifically on the hoop houses and high tunnels today. But as you'll see, there's a lot of opportunity. And please, if you've used other EQIP programs or have other practices that receive EQIP funding, please let us know. Please share in the chat.
There's over 210 different programs that NRCS can help with. So it's amazing.
A shout out on that funding note, because it's us as Wisconsin farmers and landowners that really need to advocate for funding for the NRCS and our other USD agencies. Those things, as you will see, literally trickle down to our farms and our businesses and our land, and they're things that we need to keep at advocating for. Okay, on to Wisconsin here. This is not meant for you to see. It's just meant to give you a general graphic. I will send you in the resource list after this webinar, the actual sheet, and you can find where you are in the state and what your closest office is if you haven't been there already. The state is, as you can see, divided into regions, and then it boils down to your county level. This is your USDA office, the FSA, maybe your county conservationist. There's other resources there. That's your hub of local information resources, and as you will see, potential funding for some of these programs. All right, so I want to introduce, we have 3 fabulous Wisconsin Conservation Connectors. These are folks on our project team who are available to help you get connected with NRCS. And as Sarah said, we also have a parallel program with FSA, Farm Service Agency resources as well. So there are folks can give a wave on the call. Kristen Jurczyk, I know, is on the phone, but she's a fantastic grazer who runs Bratzett Family Farm out in southeast Wisconsin, and she knows all on things grazing, so please tap into her for that. Robert Pierce, you will meet personally soon. He is a Madison area urban farmer for over 20 years and brings such wealth to the program and sees things from a different lens, farming in an urban area. And Marion Holmes is up in Dunn County, Homegirls Dairy, all things grazing, all things USDA in general. She's also an organic inspector. So thank you 3 for all your good work and connecting, and more on that as we roll. And with that, I think we're going to turn things over to Katie Dixon. So what we're going to do today, folks, is we're going to have 2 farmers, Katie Dixon and Robert Pierce, share a little on their personal experience with EQIP, with their high tunnels, and really see things in action and hear about their experiences. Then we'll turn things over to Megan Duberstein with the NRCS, with EQIP, and she'll go into more of the details on the program specifics with plenty of time for question and answers. If you have pending questions, please stick them in the chat, but we'll have, again, time at the end too for that. So Katie runs Christensen Farm in Browntown, Wisconsin. Now with Katie and I here, and if you count our families, we make up 10% of the Browntown population of 212. So small town, just outside of Monroe, but Katie has deep roots in the area. This is her family farm, 3 generations that she came back to after traveling the world and doing the Peace Corps. She just got back from, where'd you get back from? Costa Rica the other day, to really dig into her family farm from an organic farmer perspective, taking care of the soil, taking care of our community with a vegetable CSA. And as you will see her share, she has hoop houses that she uses for her vegetable growing. So thank you so much for joining us, Katie, and take it away.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. As Lisa mentioned, I'm on my home farm in southern Wisconsin. We produce on 7 acres. And in 2016, well, prior to 2016, we had purchased a hoop house from a greenhouse that had gone out of business, removed it, reconstructed it, And it really changed, our season extension, being able to start things earlier in the season, get them to market, get them into CSA, as well as extending the season. And then we ran into the problem of, wow, we only have this one space, and rotation was getting difficult. I think it was at probably the MOSA conference, I found out about the EQIP program. So that would have been probably in 2015. I went into my local office and spoke with the two gentlemen in the NRC office, and they had heard of the program, but were pretty unfamiliar since there is not a large group of, or really many small scale vegetable farmers in my area. So they were very helpful, got me the correct paperwork, and answered a lot of my questions, because with government programs, there are besides the acronyms, there are unfortunately a number of hoops to go through. So they were extremely helpful in helping me understand that really the program does have a lot of flexibility, but with the whole point system, I applied, but it's in a ranking of, where you are in the state and how many other farms are putting up hoop houses or applying for them. So it was probably another 1.5 to 2 years until I got word that had been approved and was going to receive the hoop house. During that time, I talked to a lot of other farmers and did a lot of research as to what kind of hoop house I wanted, the different styles. And because it's a very set, unless it's changed, because this is 6 years ago, a very set square footage that we were allowed to do. And being a farmer, you want to be as economical as possible, but get what you want. And what I did really end up appreciating about this program is I didn't have to buy a set kit and everything from one place. So you can see in the picture, our previous hoop house had wood boards along the bottom, which if you're going to be in the soil, they had to be treated, which with my organic certification made things a little difficult, because your crops have to be at least 2 feet away from treated wood. So in this one, we wanted metal floorboards, we wanted roll down sides, and I wanted sturdy end walls. Both of my hoop houses run east-west, and we get a lot of west wind, so I didn't want flapping plastic. So once I was approved, I was able to purchase my hoop house, and I hope I can mention this, but I highly recommend Zimmerman High Tunnels, and I can put their link in the chat. They were fantastic to work with. So that was the majority of the kit. However, I wanted polycarbonate end walls, and that is a little pricier, but I was able to find a local distributor, I guess, only an hour away, so I didn't have to pay for shipping. And then also my plastic over the top, I also purchased that from a distributor only an hour away. So those are heavy items. So we were able to save by going and picking those things up at the distributors. We did all the construction ourselves. There were the hoop house came with, step-by-step instructions. However, Zimmerman was always willing to answer questions over the phone. And we ended up with more pieces than we needed. This picture was the hardest part. Even though it's a very gentle grade on this hill, leveling and getting all of those, the sidewall, the gunnel supports equal took the most time, because we wanted our other hoop house was at a little bit of a slant, and we kind of created raised beds. We didn't want to do that in this one. And I should mention, this one was 30 by 72, which was, we pretty much maxed out. That was the size we could have and fall under the regulations in the grant. But yeah, we were able to put it up. It was probably 5 months from beginning to end, but this is my full-time job. My husband is a teacher, so finding the time to do it and the appropriate weather is always a challenge, especially that day you put the plastic. One thing I love about this hoop house is we went with the roll down sides for ventilation. It's so helpful. We have garage doors on each end, so we're able to get our small tractor and tiller inside. And so once we had constructed it, the NRCS staff had to come out once during the process and then once at the very end. And from there, our main thing that we had to agree to is that we were going to plant in the soil for 3 years following the installation of this hoop house. And then I submitted my receipts and we received payment, reimbursement for the entire thing. I can't recommend the program enough. It is something to plan for. My sister applied, she's in another part of Wisconsin, and she's been waiting for, I think it's almost 3 years to get approval. So it doesn't happen overnight, but it's really changed our systems. I now have space to do some experimentation. I start things in there in January and rotate between my other hoop house. So I'm ready to go now. I can offer a spring share throughout May and have plenty of things. It's just, and I have so much space. But one thing I did also want to mention, make sure to check with your zoning in your area. I found out the hard way that even though this falls under a non-permanent structure, you have to get a building permit. So make sure you do that. But yeah, the process was easy, and NRCS were very helpful. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are, or put them in the chat. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, please ask questions, but also we will roll on and have questions at the end. And we'll move on to our next farmer share of Robert Pierce with half the 40 acres out of Madison. We are really lucky to have Robert here. Robert is an amazing resource for farming. And Robert sees hope in every seed and every person. And if you don't know Robert, you'll still understand why. He has been farming for over 20 years. He's a veteran himself. He's been running the Southside Farmers Market for over 20 years. He founded Neighborhood Food Solutions, and I will put the link in the chat. It's a nonprofit he runs that works with particularly incarcerated youth to get them into agriculture, to get them into farming, and the world would be a better place with more of that now, wouldn't it? So he's one of our connectors on our team, and he grows a diversity of vegetables. And he sells to all the cool chefs in Madison. Is that fair to say, Robert? You know him, and you'll see his good stuff there. One shout out before I forget is opportunities to meet in person. So we have 2 field days under the RTC umbrella coming up. One, Robert's going to be hosting probably until late June, early July. And we will send you all an email and registration free to come to see what he's talking about in action as soon as that's all set. And then also Katie will be hosting a field day at her place for women farmers as part of our Soil Sisters weekend, the first weekend in August. That's going to be a whole day event at her place on August 5th. And we'll get you women farmers out there, or wannabe women farmers out there, that info as well. So hi, Robert. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And could you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your farm and what you grow, and if you have snow, because we all have snow today, I think.
Yeah, we have snow. It's typical March, come in like a lamb, go out like a lion. So we're glad when it's gone. But anyway, I'm out of here in Madison. I do an urban ag. We're in town, but yet zone ag. I come in through the EQIP program during the pandemic, so everything came to me. It was quite easy for me to get started with everything because I didn't have to go to any offices or jump through a lot of hoops. They came to me with this, and it was great to have that happen. They came onto the farm and looked in, we had 38 acres that we work with. I grow just about whatever. I run 4 farmers markets. I have a youth group that I deal with called PEAT. PEAT stands for Program for Entrepreneurial and Agricultural Training. I have another group of returning citizens that we call FAIR, Farming After Incarceration and Release. So I'm stayed quite busy during the summer, and we already had a hoop house, but wasn't really big enough for doing what we're doing. And so when we had signed up for the EQIP program, basically because we were transitioning some of the land that we had into organic and getting paid for some of those expenses. And when they came out, they also said, well, we can also help you with a high tunnel. And so it's quite nice. It was a couple options, you can get a down payment to get, to buy that. And then once it's finished, you can get the rest of that money reimbursed back to you. And so if we put that together and decided we wanted to do tomatoes and bring them into the very end of the season. And we started too late this season or this past season to get that going. So now it's looking at lettuce and some different types of kale to to do an early season with them. We might change up and do something different for the later part of the season, but right now it's saving the lettuce. We have a lot of critters that love lettuce. We can close that up and keep them out. We have a nice deer that loves to eat the inside, just the nice crispy part of the lettuce. So he big buck. He just goes down. We know which ones are ready because he knows. So it actually keeps him out of their stuff. So which is
Excellent.
a great thing to be able to have, where you can control that. But that's a great thing to be able to control keeping critters out. And then basically just be able to maintain and keep a control over what you're growing. So those are some of the benefits I really enjoy of having high tunnels or having hoop houses. So
Excellent. So you're in your first season with your hoop house right now with the lettuce, right? So you'll have more learning, more things. And you could go back, Robert, you were talking about when the NRCS came out. What was your first step with the NRCS? It sounds like they came out to your farm to do a land walk. And how did you first hear about it?
I've signed papers and stuff to basically get started in the court program. And then they sent people out to, FSA and the other different organizations that came out and evaluated the property to see, what I could do and what, available, what opportunities were available for me. And that was the big one, to get the high tunnel started. I already had a farm number, but they made sure I had a farm number. They did all the work was just put out there. I mean, I guess it was one good thing about the pandemic. I had to go off the farm. I could just stay there, and they sent all these people to me. It's great. So I just had to have a pen in my hand and sign papers. Yeah.
How did you find the application process, or what advice would you give somebody who's starting out with that?
Well, as we always say, you first got to have that farm number. Once you have that farm number, things open up for you. When they came out to take a look at the property, it was quite easy. They said, well, these are some of the options you have, and where do you want to start? And we just took in consideration that there's things that we needed to do right away. The next thing we'll probably be doing, we're looking at doing some type of shed for to clean, the vegetables and stuff like that. But, there were all these options that we could do. So we just started with the main one would be high tunnel. And my suggestion for that is, if you don't know about putting up erector sets, please get someone who does. Because that, I thought I was good, it's like, whoa, out of my range. So, that was my
So who did
biggest
you-
challenge.
Yeah. Who did you draw on to help you with that? Like for the actual, you mean the actual construction was pretty erector set?
Well,
like
I have
specialized?
a couple of friends that are in construction, and they build things for people and stuff. So I got them to do it. Yeah, something that I just thought I could do on my own, but I put many hoop houses together. I worked with Growing Power for many years, and we did a whole lot of not high tunnels, but just hoop houses. But this was
Yeah.
another beast, and just couldn't do it all by myself. So if even being tech savvy, with working in that type of work, you still might need someone else to do it for you. Either have enough help on hand to get it done.
You bring up a really good point there, Robert, that what we're talking about here goes beyond. I know we're talking about our farm businesses and we're talking about important USDA programs, but you can't build a hoop house alone. And it's all about the community and the things we're sharing today, that collaboration and the spirit within our sustainable ag community that builds these hoop houses. That is for sure. Excellent. And can you talk a little bit more about the construction side? Like what did you buy a kit like Katie's, or where did you go for resources on that?
Well, there's a company out of Iowa that specializes in doing different types of high tunnels, and they work with NCRS, so they know that that if you call them, they will tell you which ones you can get, and how how much or what size are you looking for, the whole gamut. They work with NCRS and equip programs. They know about it. It was quite easy. We did a 30 by 80 by 86, something like that, and they shipped it and got it there. And you can either have NCRS just pay for it and have them, they'll send them the money and just don't worry about it. You got it, put it together, get to work.
Excellent. So what might folks see growing during your field day, whatever, in the summer?
Well, we're
What do you
gonna
think you'll have in there?
continue. We're gonna look at doing and a lot of restaurants like the particular lettuces that I do. So like I spoke before, so the deer, and so we are going to work with keeping doing a lot of lettuce on that. We might change towards the end doing something else, but we do some specialty kale and specialty lettuces that we want to be able to take and bring them in early and then keep them late. So.
Excellent. All righty. Well, thank you, Robert. We'll circle back with questions for Robert. And again, a pre-invite. You're hearing it here first to come out and see his place in the summer on the field day. We'll get you all that info. And with that, we will go to our main show with Megan Duberstein with NRCS. We're lucky to have, between Eric and Megan, we've got the two top people in our categories here from Wisconsin NRCS. Megan is, we'll get her title right though, she's technically the Environmental Equality Incentives Program EQIP State Program Specialist for Wisconsin, but she's basically in charge of EQIP for our state. But she comes with deep roots with NRCS. She's been with NRCS for over 12 years as a soil conservationist and many other hats up in her Appleton, Stevens Point area there. And she lives in Stevens Point with her family. And thank you so much, Megan, for joining us. And I will gratefully turn this over to you. There's been some great questions, and please keep them coming in the chat that Sarah's been saying, wait, we will, if Megan doesn't answer that, we'll get back to it. So please keep those coming, and we'll go to questions after.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Let's see, I get my slides up. You all see that okay? Okay, sounds good. So yeah, I'm Megan Duberstein, born and raised in Wisconsin, and I've worked here my whole life with NRCS, so pretty fluent on Wisconsin NRCS. But I'll talk a little bit about EQIP. I'm going to mention a few acronyms, so we'll get to be a little bit of alphabet soup. But just know, if you are new to NRCS programs, you don't need to have any of those terms memorized. Just talk to your local NRCS staff. They'll figure out exactly what you're talking about. We're very used to it. We understand that you guys don't live and breathe these acronyms like we do. All right, so I just want to touch a little bit about EQIP. It's the motto that we use for it is helping people help the land. It's one of our main programs at NRCS. And I just want to remind everyone that all of our programs are voluntary. So there's no one, we would have to enforce a contract if there was a contract, but choosing to participate with us or even reach out to us, that's all up to you as owners or renters. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk with anyone we can. We're more than happy to give you information that we can offer, whether you're participating in a program or not. So you don't have to be in a program to talk to NRCS staff. We're more than happy to give you any of that guidance that we do have available for people that are in programs. We give it to folks that are outside of our programs as well. So the goal of EQIP is we're trying to provide some financial incentives to producers and landowners to voluntarily adopt these conservation practices on their land. And that could be anything from just a management plan or all the way to structural practices that might be needed out there. All of our funding can be used on a variety of land uses. So we do work in forest land situations, cropland, which is probably the main topic here today, pasture, and we do some work on farmsteads too. In Wisconsin, we do offer EQIP throughout the entire state and all counties. It is a nationwide program, so I know there's a few people from out of state, but EQIP is available in every state in the US. You'll just kind of notice maybe you'll hear about some other acronyms in certain areas depending on watersheds and things like that. But EQIP really is based on resolving resource concerns on the landscape. And so we do that by working with landowners and operators to kind of figure out what your goals are for your operation and move forward from that. So you might come in saying, oh yeah, I think I need a high tunnel because you're raising vegetables and you want to extend your growing season. We're going to come out there, take a look at your farm with you, talk about what you're looking to do. And we might notice other things out there like, oh, you want to put your high tunnel sort of on the bottom of a hill. There might be some water issues. We might need a diversion here to keep that water from flooding your high tunnel area. So we're looking for those kinds of things to hopefully set you up on the right path without any further issues coming up as you get going. So touching on the funding a little bit. So like I said, EQIP is the main funding program. You might hear about other fund pools, depending on what staff you're working with. They might mention, okay, your application is going to fit into the Beginning Farmer Fund Pool or the local work group or Climate Smart. Just know that those other fund pools exist. The local staff will figure out where your application fits, and it might be multiple fund pools. But those are just kind of smaller pots of money within that EQIP funding. So there's just different things that are out there. Many of these overlap with one another. So I just kind of wanted to bring some awareness that don't be overwhelmed if you hear that stuff. It's all still EQIP. There's just a lot of different ways we do get money in Wisconsin. You might hear about other programs. So some more acronyms that I dropped below here would be RCPP. It's one of our partnership programs. There's several of those going on in the state, but those are programs where we work with a partner to do usually some kind of water quality work. And so those are coming up every few years. We'll have a new one, and older ones will have resolved their issues and have closed down that one. We also have GLRI, so the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. So a significant portion of the east side of the state falls within that. Those are all practices that are targeted at improving water quality for the watersheds that fall into the Great Lakes region. So you might hear some of those. And like I said, those fund pools are all over the state. A lot of our basic ones are statewide, such as Beginning Farmer. That's a statewide fund pool because we have beginner farmers all over the state. And let's see. And then we also have some special payment rates. So there is always a certain flat rate payment that's available. But if you do apply as the socially disadvantaged beginning or limited resource farmer, there's a different payment rate available that is a little bit higher. In general, most of our payment rates are designed to target about 70% of the expected cost for a project. And that payment is kind of determined by a 3-state area. We work with the region to kind of figure out what things are costing, and national will take all of that into account so that it's not just being made at a local level what these payment rates are. It's a nationally reviewed process, and there's a whole team of people dedicated to that to make sure we're staying pretty accurate to what these things are costing. And when I say flat rate, that means it's $1 per unit. So an example of the high tunnels, there's a certain dollar figure per square foot that we will provide financial assistance on. The other thing I would like to let people know is you might still just be in the planning phase. You're not sure if you want to do this program or not. That's fine. Go through the planning process with us. And before you sign a contract, you will know what kind of financial assistance we will be able to offer. And at that point, you'll be able to make a really good decision for yourself if that's something you feel like comfortable taking on. I did see that there was one question in the chat earlier about advance payments. Advance payments are an option for historically underserved applicants. That would allow you to get 50% of the payment up front in advance of getting the practice completed. You do have to spend those funds within 90 days of receiving them though. So let your NRCS staff know that that's something you're interested in doing. But before you get, when you get within that 90-day window of you're ready to buy the high tunnel or whatever it is, start working with NRCS so we can get that advance payment to you if that's needed. And Robert alluded to the fact that he used assignment of payment. So in some situations, we can assign a payment to a vendor. So if there's a high tunnel company that you are going to buy from, you can set it up so that the payment that is needed to pay for that high tunnel you're purchasing, we can just send it directly to that vendor through the contract and instead of you. So it kind of just saves you as being the middleman of having to write the check. So there's some options there. Always feel free to ask the staff that you're working with about things. Everyone comes from different situations on how they're going to proceed with getting the contract and then fully implementing it. And we've seen it all. You guys have seen this slide already. I just wanted to touch again a little bit on what historically underserved farmers means. This is something you fill out on the application form for EQIP or for any of our programs. There'll be a section on there that you can check if you feel that you qualify as beginning farmer, limited resource farmer, socially disadvantaged. There's even an online tool for the limited resource farmer that you can use, and that is directly written on the application of where to go to for that. That helps you determine it by the county you live in and the year that you're looking at applying. So that's always up to date and available. If you have questions, there's further details of what these definitions are on the application, and you can certainly ask the NRCS staff too if you're unsure. But you also don't have to identify as any of these categories. So if you don't feel comfortable indicating that, or you don't fall into any of those categories, it's okay to say not applicable. That will not change your funding or being eligible for the program. It's just another thing we note of so that we can maybe put you in the beginning farmer fund pool or a socially disadvantaged fund pool, or make sure you're getting that appropriate higher historically underserved payment rate. I wanted to touch a little bit on some of the practices we have available through EQIP. So EQIP is certainly one of the largest funding programs we have. And this is just a small listing of some of the practices there. We have over 100 practices through EQIP, and within all those practices, they all have several scenarios. So similar things, for example, like the tree shrub planting, there's tree shrub planting in regards to hardwood plantings versus conifers, things like that. So there's a little bit of variation available. But some of these ones I pulled out because I thought they'd be most relevant to high tunnels or small farm or CSA vegetable growing operations. So establishing crop rotations, conservation cover. For some of you, maybe in the driftless area, contour farming might be a big need. Cover crops, field borders, high tunnels, of course. The actual implementation of nutrient management or pest management, using no-till, erosion control structures, wildlife habitat plantings, windbreaks. Those are some of the main ones I could think of. There's certainly a lot more, and you don't need to know what all of these things are. That's why we definitely start off a lot of the times in the application process doing a field visit with you, because we know you don't have all of our stuff memorized. So that's why we talk to you to see what is your goal, what is your vision for your land, and how can we help you get there. So part of, we'll figure out which programs make sense for you, and we'll also figure out what practices make sense. Opposite of the program, the practices here, we do have management plans. So that would be getting a written plan developed. So we can provide cost share for getting a nutrient management plan developed with a professional agronomist, or a pest management plan. We also have cost share for organic transition plans. There's other ones out there like grazing plans and whatnot. But again, these were probably the three that were most applicable to high tunnels and small vegetable grower operations. Okay, so after, I talked a little bit about kind of the purpose and some of those practices for EQIP. This slide, I think, kind of lays out the process of getting involved pretty simply. When we look at these steps, they're fairly broad steps, and I would say steps 1, 2, and 3 tend to happen all at the same time, maybe, or maybe in a little bit different order. We're NRCS staff, we're here to help you get through those. But the biggest thing is, call your NRCS staff, start that connection with them, and we'll help you get through the rest of these steps. So filling out the application, that might be, during that site visit, we come out to you, we bring an application, and we start doing that. In other situations, maybe it's, January and there's too much snow. You might come into the office and the staff will take an application and plan a site visit with you when the snow melts, so we can come see everything a little bit better. So sometimes those things kind of get in different order. I know a lot of offices like to take that application right away so that we have all of your contact information and we can get in touch with you easy. And you're on that queue then of for sure looking at things. Now, filling out an application doesn't commit you to anything with us. It's more of a, you're interested in the programs. And if you choose not to follow through with the program, that's fine. Give us a call and let us know you want to cancel the application. We're totally okay with that. Eligibility, I know there's probably a lot of questions about that. Part of it is things you'll do with NRCS, and some of it you'll be doing with FSA, Farm Service Agency. They're our sister agency. most of the time NRCS and FSA are in the same building. So a lot of times you can get all that stuff done at once, but we'll help you figure out what forms you need to fill out. If it's an FSA form, they'll help you get through that. So that would be things like getting that farm number, filling out some basic eligibility things. For EQIP, you have to fill out an AGI, which is average adjusted gross income. So to be eligible for our programs, your AGI has to be less than $900,000 a year on average for the last 3 years. You can update your soil erosion and wetland wetland forms that way, things like that. Other eligibility, and I'll talk a little bit more about eligibility again in the future, but so once you get through those first 3 steps, it might be a little bit of a waiting period, but then we get into ranking. EQIP is competitive, so there can be some time in between when you apply and when we get to that ranking part of the process, just depending on the timelines. And I know a couple of our farmers here that we're talking mentioned that it took them a couple of years to get through and get funded. So we do try to get everyone funded as we can, but that's partially why we have ranking, is because we have so many applicants.
That's what I thought. We just lost her. Shoot. All right. There. Eric, I see that you're on the call. I wonder if I can put you on the spot. Would you be interested in answering a few of the questions while we wait for her to come back in?
I'm back, sorry.
Yay. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that.
My internet has been really good all morning until this meeting started. So, oh, where did I get cut off? I'm not even sure where it cut me off.
Okay. Can anyone jump in? I was reading the chat.
You were talking about applications.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ranking.
Ranking, okay, thank you. Let's see, so ranking, so, okay. So hopefully, you know, we'll get through the first 3 steps there, 1, 2, and 3, get to ranking. And EQIP is competitive, so it might take a couple rounds of EQIP to get a funded application, and that's okay. And that's, you know, it's perfectly fine to apply for EQIP early on. You know, even if you're just starting to think about stuff, apply for the program. You know, it might take you a couple of years to get through, but you might also get some really good planning resources from NRCS or things like that as well. So that's perfectly acceptable. After ranking, you'll find out that you've been funded at some point. So hopefully sooner than later, you know, but once you do find out you have a contract, you can start that implementation phase and getting those practices established. One thing I want to remind people, especially newer folks that are getting into our programs, NRCS can't cost share practices that have been completed already. So if you are applying for something, don't start it until you sign a contract. And you will know when you sign a contract because it's a government contract. So there's lots of forms for you to sign. So that will stick in your head that you had to sign your name like 20 days in one day. So let's see. So just a little bit more about the application process. We take applications every day of the year, year round. So if you're just thinking about things, feel free to call us, schedule an appointment, whether it's in the office or at your farm. We'll take that application anytime. At certain points of the year, then we batch those applications. So it might be called, you might see an announcement about an application deadline or a batching deadline. That just means that's the cutoff for the year of where we're going to be looking at what applications we're going to take through that ranking process. So the next one we have coming up is a spring one. That's on May 20th. But typically our first big one of the fiscal year will be in October. Or sometime in the fall. It kind of fluctuates between October and November. And then we usually do have a smaller sign up again in the spring. There's lots of resources to keep an eye out for finding those dates, but you don't need to wait for those batching dates. Like I said, you can just send an application in to us and get going on things. We plan year round. Of course, it's easier to plan when there's no snow on the ground. So we try to do a lot during the summer. You'll want to apply with your local NRCS office. And I'll provide a resource in a little bit on how to find who your local person is. You know, that staff will work with you on a site visit, work on planning with you, and kind of get all those things figured out. After that batching date, then we start moving on into some of our internal deadlines to keep the ball rolling, where we go through a ranking period and prioritization periods to get all those applications that we've received for the last year sorted by a ranking score. And that's based on a lot of different factors, and that varies by fund pool as well. So again, that's a lot of deep information that we won't get into, but that is just part of the process, so you all know. And having an application, I just want to remind people, it doesn't guarantee a contract. It does take time. I know some of our farmers that talked about how it took a little bit of time potentially. That being said, we're certainly happy to give you as much information as we can during that planning process. Maybe you don't want to wait to get a contract from us and you just want to move forward and do the project yourself. That's fine. We'll give you that planning information that we have so you can just do it on your own. We're okay with that. All right, a little bit on eligibility. So in regards to EQIP, there's 3 parts to eligibility. There's the applicant eligibility, there's the land eligibility, and resource concern eligibility for us. You might not hear a lot about this. This is a lot of stuff that NRCS just kind of takes care of when we're doing that site visit with you and throwing paperwork at you. So eligible applicants, you do need to be considered some kind of agricultural producer, or and that would even consider trees. So private forest owners, that is considered a crop. So if you do own forest, that would make you potentially eligible. And this is open to landowners or folks that do rent land. And you can be as an individual, joint operation, general partnerships, you can have a business name. All of those things can be part of the program. EQIP has that AGI limitation that I mentioned. So you have to have an AGI of less than $900,000 a year on average. Eligible land, any agricultural or privately owned forest land is eligible for the programs. Publicly owned land can be enrolled if it's part of an agriculture or forest operation. And tribal land is also available for the programs. And resource concern eligibility. This might be a term you don't hear about depending on which staff you're talking to. But we are always targeting what resource concern are we resolving with these practices. Some are very obvious. If we're looking at like a grassed waterway, we obviously have a gully. It's very obvious soil erosion, and grass waterway is solving that. And some are just not so obvious. But we will work with you on that, do our measurements that are needed out in the field. I know a lot of staff love to talk about soil health measurements in the field. So, they're going to probably be digging a hole somewhere, using a probe or something just to see what the soil texture is like and what the soil health is like, and talk to you a little bit about that too. Oh, all my chat just totally caught up right here. So I'm sure I missed a ton of questions and I'm really sorry.
We're answering them. Don't worry.
Okay,
I'm
good.
saving ones for you, Megan. I'm saving them.
Perfect.
You're doing great.
Here's that map again. I know they're going to send that out to you guys. I just want to point out that pretty much every office will have, or pretty much every county will have an office. That's what those little red dots are. They all have various types of staff. There are soil conservationists at the different offices. There are technicians who do a lot more of the design work. There are grazing specialists throughout the state, and forestry specialists, and all sorts of people with all sorts of knowledge throughout the state. So connect with that local office first. If you have a unique situation, they might bring in an area staff person to help out, and all that kind of stuff. So we're here to help you, but the place you should start is your local field office, and they will get you connected to whatever outside resources within NRCS you might need. And we're always bringing on new staff, so you might get a whole team of NRCS folks out at your farm. We're training a new soil conservationist or a new technician. So you might get to meet a few people from different offices. And then I wanted to give you guys a little demo on how to find your local resources. So if you go to farmers.gov, and I will open up this website too and show you, you can find your local service center. It's got all sorts of information about USDA programs in general. So NRCS and FSA are part of USDA, which is the US Department of Agriculture. So we do have this big website that kind of has a little bit of everything on there for you. You can also create an account on here so that you can sign some forms and review things online without having to go to the office. So COVID gave us the motivation to kind of get that website really functional and better using for people. And then right here below the Find Your Local Service Center, this is just a screenshot of what that page looks like to find your office. So I will bring that up. Can you guys see that website that I'm on? Okay, I might have to reshare. Okay, does that show up now? Okay, so when you go to farmers.gov, this is the home page. So you'll see there's stuff about loans here, protection and recovery, conservation. This is where you'll find NRCS stuff, working with us, your business. So you can log in if you have a login, that kind of stuff. All sorts of information here. But if you just scroll down, there's going to be a service center locator, and you can just click on that. And you can pick your state, because NRCS and USDA are in every state, and your county. So I'm in Portage County, so I'm just going to select that and go. And it will load all of the USDA offices for you. So first one we have here is the Farm Service Agency. Then we have Natural Resource Conservation Service, so NRCS. You'll notice that these two are in the same office together. We got the same address, same number. And then rural development will also show up on a lot of these counties as well. But yeah, you can call both of these offices. If you want to talk to an NRCS directly, just call the NRCS line first, or you can email someone. If you don't want to talk on the phone, you can email that local contact right there. This is usually the supervisor for that office. So they have been soil cons at one point in their career, and now they've just been elevated to doing more of the paperwork and less of the fun field work that the soil cons get to do. So there's also, you can get the directions on how to get to the office. I highly recommend calling or emailing ahead of time to set up an appointment instead of just dropping into the office. Especially as we get into the warmer days here, there's gonna be a lot of field work. So our staff is constantly going out to the field to do things, and we don't want to miss you by accident. Or, might be beneficial for you just to have us come out to you in the first place. That's always kind of convenient to have the staff come out to you. But FSA usually does always have someone in the office, so you can schedule with them to do your eligibility paperwork there and set up your farm records pretty much anytime. But it does help to have an appointment set up ahead of time so you don't have to wait too long to get those things done. And while we're here, I'll just kind of flip open, conservation. There's going to be a lot of different topics that you could look into. See, advice, conservation tools, so different resource concerns that maybe you're worried about on your particular land. And then they will also talk about how to get assistance from NRCS. All right, that's all I had, I guess, for my slides. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. It's a large program and everyone has such different needs that we're more than happy to, answer those questions. Like I said, don't feel like you have to be committed to something just to call us. Call us, we'll love to talk about things. We love to go out to the field, see what you got going on and how we can help with that.
Megan, there's a couple of questions. I'm going to see if I can call them out for you. So there was a question early on about high tunnels on leased land and what that could look like.
Yeah, so if you are renting land from someone and you want to put on a structural practice like a high tunnel, we have a form in the office called landowner concurrence that the landowner would just need to sign. It just states what the practices are and that the landowner is aware that you would be putting that out there. So that makes sure we're all on the same page. They know that you would be putting something out there, and our CS knows that everyone has communicated between the landowner and the renter, those kinds of things. So it's a very simple form. If you have a formal lease with a landowner that says that you can do those things, that is acceptable as well. It doesn't need to be anything super formal. I've had people bring in handwritten notes that were signed by the landowner saying, I am okay with so-and-so doing this practice on my property. But we do have a standard form just to make things simple.
Thank you so much. And then another question, is there still a requirement that a hoop house is placed on land that has prior egg production?
Yes, yep. So high tunnels do need to be on land that has been cropped. It doesn't have to be like a traditional cornfield or anything, but it could be your previous garden areas that you have been annually tilling up and planting, but it does need to be on a cropped area.
And thank you. And then previously you spoke about how socially disadvantaged farmers could potentially get some funds ahead of time, and they had 90 days to spend that. Do they also have a time frame to build their tunnel?
Yes, and that's kind of developed with the contract paperwork. So part of the contract will be the schedule of operations. So when you're planning with the NRCS staff, you're going to be planning roughly what month and year you're going to be putting those practices in. So you'll still need to follow that plan that was contracted. We do have room for adjustment. We understand things come up all the time, especially when farming is involved. So if something's going to change and you're not going to get it done that year that you thought you would, whether it's weather related or if it's health related or financial reasons, the best thing you can do is just talk to your NRCS staff and work through the process. We will work with you guys. We're not trying to be real nitpicky on things. We need to make sure these contracts will get done. But we do understand there's things happen. Life happens and it changes rapidly. So
stay in touch. Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
When I got my tunnel, I'll tell you that I was moving some soil to level things out. And I got the letter from the NRCS that said, we can no longer fund you because you have erosion. And I was like, oh my gosh. But it was just that communication piece that you need to consider as you're moving soil on your field. One of the things they're trying to do is make it so that you're being very focused on conservation practices. And with erosion existing, because I was moving soil, of course, I lost the funding. It was fine. It was just a simple conversation with the NRCS and we were able to clear that up. There's some questions also about dual purpose. So livestock and agriculture, can they have the livestock in the high tunnel during the winter months?
No, we don't allow any livestock in the high tunnels that we fund. There are some limitations there. I know someone mentioned how they, talked about how they had to agree that they were planting the crops in the ground. So that's another one of those requirements for high tunnels in particular. We don't allow potted plants or raised beds. That doesn't mean you can't start your plants in, little starter trays, but we do expect that crop to be planted in the ground. And then no livestock can be stored in there. And we don't want it being used as like a equipment storage either. I mean, you can certainly leave, your hoe in there or something as you need to, but we don't want to see tractors and a lot of chemical storage in there.
Thank you. And if a farmer is unfunded in one batch, will they be considered in subsequent batches until they get funded, or do they need to reapply each time?
Yeah, so if you don't get funded in that first batch in that first year, you will get a letter eventually from the office asking if you are still interested or not. But your application will automatically roll over unless you called to cancel that application or you haven't been filling out the eligibility paperwork. So most of the time when you fill out that eligibility stuff, it's one and done, but there are a couple forms that you have to fill out annually, like that AGI form. So as long as you keep up to date with that, you will always get a letter from us though, before we even think about taking you off of a list.
And AGI for the rest of us. Acronyms.
Oh,
AGI.
yes. AGI is that adjusted gross income form. It's just a one-page form, and the only question it asks is, do you make less than or more than $900,000 a year over the last 3 years? And it'll define what those years are also in that form.
You mentioned cropped previously. Is there a number of years previously?
No, for high tunnels, it only has to be 1 year of that cropping history. We do want it to be current. So we don't look at idle land necessarily for projects. We don't want to, we don't put land into production basically. So if it's been abandoned farmland or something, that is the highest condition it could be. And whereas creating cropland would maybe be creating those resource concerns that we're already trying to resolve.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Lisa or Jan, do you see additional questions in the chat that you'd like to bring out? Or if anybody, I see that there's a request for conservation coaches in Illinois. And I don't know. I'm assuming that NRCS would be just as helpful in Illinois as they would be in Minnesota and Wisconsin. The NRCS is fantastic to work with, so. Okay. Do you see the questions in the chat, Megan? Now I think we're down to the current ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
looks like they're all loading for me now. Let's see. You can use cover crops in a high tunnel area. Cover crops are definitely part of a crop rotation. So if you have a garden space that you're using cover crops in there, that definitely counts as cropping. even if it's a cover crop that you're not harvesting, you're just using it as a soil cover or a green manure. We definitely count that, and we really enjoy when people use cover crops. It does so much for soil health. There's another question asking if you can use the high tunnel to grow starters such as elderberry and other shrubs. Yep, you can plant woody vegetation in there as well. Just be careful that it doesn't get too tall. I have worked with producers that have grown dwarf apple and plum trees inside their high tunnel. So there's some extra pruning maintenance that might be needed, but it's doable. That's a crop that you can plant in the ground. And
Excellent. Thank you, Megan.
Can I ask one live? Or do I need? Okay.
Sure.
I didn't know how to write it succinctly. I saw as other programs or other funding, there was like structural erosion control. And I know that from managing high tunnels, like the water that comes off of them, we have put tile line along the edges and then like channeled that over to like the ditch. Is that funding, would that part of it be able to be funded through erosion control, or would that be part of the high tunnel construction cost that would be wrapped up into that original thing?
That would be a different practice, but it would still be part of that suite of practices. So a lot of times outside of high tunnels, especially when we're looking at grazing stuff, we do suites of practices. So there might be multiple practices involved in your contract. But yeah, that moving that water safely out of that area so that's not creating a gully, that could be a cost shareable thing. And it's definitely one of the things that planners are looking for when they meet with everyone out on their property is, where is this water going and is it going to channelize and create that gully? We're also looking at what water is coming off the landscape directly at that high tunnel to keep that stuff separate and keep clean water clean and not allow those gullies to form.
We don't want to grow rice here. It's a really important thing to consider when you're looking at high tunnels. And if you're new to a high tunnel, thinking through that snow that comes off and where it's going to grow or go. And I can share my personal experience. I can share this photo. This is not what you want to see, is having all of this water on the outside of your high tunnel and having to deal with that. So thinking through what that water flow is going to look like and where it's going to go is something to consider when you're building your high tunnel.
Is there a maximum, sorry if you said this already, a maximum square footage that a person can apply for in a single application?
No, there's no maximums for that. Some of our practices, and high tunnel is one of them, do have a payment limitation. So we can't pay more than $10,000 per high tunnel. So that might be something you come across. And so that might make a difference for people. That doesn't limit how big you build it, it just limits how much cost share we can offer you. So you just might have more out-of-pocket expenses if you go beyond that threshold.
Is irrigation installation a part of the program?
Yeah, we do have practices for irrigation. There's micro irrigation as an option. We also look at larger, crop field situations too, but I'm guessing most of you are gonna be looking at micro irrigation. That I would recommend having a really lengthy conversation with your NRCS staff on. There are a lot of things that need to be checked for that. We're very serious about looking at water quality things and, is there certain metals in there? What kind of, elements might be in there that cause buildup? Is it a lot of calcium, things like that? And any irrigation we do, you are required to do a irrigation water management plan. So that's a record keeping thing that you're documenting how much water is being applied. We're documenting the existing soil moisture and what those plants need. So for some people, they really want to do that. And other people, that sounds like too much work comparatively with just turning onto their garden hose at home. So there's a lot into that one though. So I really recommend talking with the staff about that.
Excellent. We have two more questions, Megan, and then we could wrap. Rachel's asking about our farm is on highly erodible land. Is funding available for leveling the ground for a high tunnel?
No, we don't have any cost share available for leveling the ground. That kind of site prep is up to the landowner or the renter to cover that. So there's some limitations in that way.
All right. And a last question from Sherry. Do you have examples or ideas of practices for capturing water from a hoop house like Sarah's just talking about? I don't know why my phone number is popping up. I apologize.
I think most people plan on just having like vegetated swales on the sides, or maybe tile within there to collect that water and move it off to a safe site. We haven't really ventured into looking into, I guess, somehow tying in like a rain barrel situation or things like that. But folks are welcome to get creative with that. NRCS is always trying to learn new things to do, but we do take a long time to study stuff to make sure it's effective and works all the time. So there's certainly some practices that people do outside of our programs that it might work in certain situations, but it doesn't work all the time. So it's a thing we don't offer cost share on. But we do spend a lot of time studying some things before we offer cost share.
I just dropped a publication from Iowa State Extension about rainwater capture from high tunnels that was put together by an ag engineer from here a few years back.
Oh, thank you. And I see Eric posted a video on high tunnels too from our NRCS YouTube channel. So that might be a good watch for some folks too.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Megan, for all of these answers and for all of our fantastic presenters today. We will be sharing the video, the recording of this. We will be helping. If you have questions, once again, definitely reach out to us. Lisa's going to drop in the chat an email address that you can reach out to us to connect. But we will be sharing the recording of this, along with many of those great resources that were dropped in the chat. For any of you that want those resources sooner than grabbing these, there are 3 dots in the chat you can click on, and above the participants, it'll say Save Chat, and then be sure to click View Folder that it saves it into. You can save that chat yourself and watch things. But we appreciate everybody on this call today, and it was absolutely fun learning alongside of each of you. Definitely reach out to us, and we're happy to help. Remember, we have connectors all throughout the state of Wisconsin that can connect you to a local NRCS staff to help navigate these programs with you. And